All right, so now that we've looked at create, read, update, and delete, it's time to look at how we can query our Realm database. And so we're going to be working within the search bar methods. So let's go ahead and uncomment our extension. And we're going to remove the parts that are core data, and we're going to instead make it work using Realm. So let's comment out all of these parts that use NS fetch request or NS predicate or NS sort descriptor. All of those NSs come from our core data framework. So instead, what we want to happen when the search bar gets clicked is we're going to filter our to-do list items. So we have our to-do items, which is the array of results that consists of items, and we're going to set its new value to be equal to its previous value dot filter. And you can see that this filter method from Realm takes an NS predicate as an input. So all we're saying here is that update to-do items to equal to-do items filtered by this predicate. And we can specify the predicate format and arguments that we want to use for our filter. So if we hit enter, then the format is going to be the same as this format, which is, of course, the fact that the title of the items contains and be case and diacritic insensitive to the argument that we're going to pass in. And the argument is going to be the search bar dot text. And that is basically the equivalent of these two lines. And we can tag on this sort by simply adding a dot and write sorted by key path and ascending. Key path is going to be title, so that's what we're going to sort our results by, and ascending will set to be true, so it's alphabetical order. And that replaces all of this code, and we don't even need to call load items because we've already loaded our to-do list items from the selected category. And we're now just simply filtering those items based on our search criteria and sort criteria. So we can go ahead and delete all of that. Now, the other part we need to fix is what should happen when we dismiss the search bar. So when the search bar.text goes down to 0, we want to simply call load items. And load items, again, looks at the current selected category and pulls out the items sorted by the title in ascending order. So there's actually nothing to change here. So that is how easy it is to query our Realm database. We can simply take a list of items and filter them based on a predicate. And as we said in the core data module, you can take a look at the Realm NS predicate cheat sheet and look at some of the tips and tricks and examples as to how you can query your Realm database using these formatted strings. So now here's a challenge for you. What if I don't want to sort my to-do list items by the title? Instead, I want it to be sorted by something called the date created. And I want the items that were created earlier to show up at the top of the to-do list. So can you fix this line of code? But also you'll need to add a new property inside our item model in order to store that data. And that data is going to be saved when we create a new item. And finally, we're going to apply the sort over here. Pause the video and see if everything that we've done makes sense to you so that you can create this new property and set it. Now, you might need to look up Stack Overflow here and there, especially when you're trying to grab the current date, but it's all very, very easy to find. And I have faith that you will be able to work it out without a problem. So pause the video and give it a go. All right, so how did that go? So the first thing that we said is that we wanted it to be sorted by the key path called date created. So we have to go inside our item data model and create a new dynamic variable that's called date created. And it's going to be of type date, not data, and I'm going to make it an optional. So once we've done that, then we have to go into our to-do list view controller and look at the place where we create new items. Not only does our new item get a title, but it's also going to get a new date. And this is going to be set to equal the current date at the time when this block of code gets called. So let's go over to Google and let's try and see if we can figure out this problem. So the problem that I want is how to get current date in Swift. Maybe Swift 3, because there's not a lot of difference between Swift 3 and Swift 4. So let's hit enter and let's have a look at the first answer that we get back from Stack Overflow. How can I set a label's text to current date in Swift 3? Sounds pretty much like what we wanted, right? And you can see that the top answer with 122 votes and also ticked off as the selected answer has let date equal a new instance of date. And you can format it by specifying a particular date, month, year format. Now, we don't actually care about the format. All we want is just the date. So we can use that line right here. New item.date created equals a new instance of date. And now every new item we create gets stamped with the current date and time. So now when we sort our to-do list items that are filtered, we can say sort by key path date created. And if we want the most recent items to show up at the bottom of the to-do list, then we have to keep ascending as true. And the last thing I need to do is to simply write table view dot reload data. That's it. So now let's run our app and see what happens. So when you run your app, you might get this error and you can see it's green, which means that it's not quite a crash. And if you read it, it says something like try expression unexpectedly raised an error. Error domain io.realm code 10. Migration is required due to the following errors. Item.date created has been added. Migration is required. So to translate this, what it's telling you is that you're adding this new property called date created. But remember, if you have a look at your previous items, they don't have that property. So Xcode and Realm are both confused as to what they should do with this new property and what they should do with the items that don't have that property. And the solution to this is simply what they call migration. And in terms of Xcode, all you need to do is go to the home, click and hold your To-Doey app until it starts jiggling, and then you click the cross to delete this instance of your app. And then you come back here and you run your app afresh. So now, if we go to this new Realm location, so remember we need the first /, and let's go over to our Realm browser, open, and we're going to Command-Shift-G, type in the path, hit go, click open, click allow, and now we find our new Realm. So you can see that this new Realm that we're using for this instance of our app is completely empty. There's no categories and there's no items. So let's go ahead and add some. Home and work. And now we have two new categories, home and work, but they have no items associated. So let's go to home and add some new items. Mop floors, buy food. This is always on my mind. Not so much mop floors, but buy food is very important. So we now have two items associated with our home category, and we can view them by clicking on this link. You can see now they both have this date created property associated with them. And you can see that I created mop floors on the 12th of December 2017 at 14:21:01 seconds. And then 4 seconds later, I created buy food. So now if we add another one that contains the word food, so that we'll be able to sort it. So maybe buy food and eat food. Seems pretty logical, right? Why would you buy the food if you're not going to eat it? Now, I don't actually have these items on my to-do list, even though I'm so quick at coming up with them. So now we have buy food and eat food. So I'm going to search for the word food. And when I hit search, then I end up with all the items that contain the word food, but it's also sorted so that the ones that I created earlier gets shown at the top of the table view. Now, if you didn't want that, then you can simply reverse the order by changing ascending to false. But essentially, it's now looking at the timestamps of each of my items and applying the sort order according to that date created variable. So now if I hit the cross button, then I go back to the main table view and I have everything sorted here by alphabetical order. So feel free to have a play around with your code and make your app do whatever it is that you want it to do, and familiarize yourself with how Realm works with regards to CRUD and also how you can query the database.